Welcome back. So in the previous module, we looked at creating a table with our SQL statements. So now let's look at retrieving data, creating queries. But now instead of using the QBE, we're going to be using SQL statements. So when we write an SQL statement, there's kind of three main clauses that we're concerned with: select, from, and where. And so where is essentially an optional clause. We don't need to include it, but we do need select and from. And from will specify the table, where select is going to specify which columns of the table that we want. So we're going to say select columns 1, 2, and 3 from table 1, right? Things like that. And then where is where we can set specific conditions. If we don't specify a where, we're just going to return all of the records from those tables and include the columns that we've selected. So only the columns that are in our select clause will be displayed. So we can select multiple columns, we can select all of them, a lot of versatility. So let's kind of take a look at that. All right, so I'm going to create a query. Again, switch to SQL view. It already starts me off with select, so that's kind of nice. So if I want to select every column from a table, we use the wildcard, the asterisk. This is going to say select all. And then I'm going to say from, and I'll say table employees. And so SQL, it's not case sensitive. Typically, the clauses like this, the keywords will be in all uppercase, just to kind of make them more distinct and easier to read. So in this example, we're looking at the employees table, and we're going to say select all of the columns from the table employees. And so because we don't specify a where clause, it's going to return every single record within that table. So I run this, and there we can see we have everything from the table. We have all the columns, and we have all the records. So that's pretty great. So if we want to specify maybe just a couple of these columns, we can do that. So let's look at, we'll say last name, first name, and title. Let's do that. So I can say select first name and last name. And so you don't have to select the columns in the order that they're designed in, but when you write your query, whichever order they are in, when you write the SQL statement, that's how they're going to get displayed. So if you want to change the order of how they're viewed, you can do that just by simply selecting them in a different order. So for instance, by design, it goes last name, first name, but in this case, I'm going to select the first name first and then the last name. So it'll kind of swap them. And so I'll say select first name, last name from the table employees. So I run that and I get just that. Oh, I was also going to add in the title, wasn't I? So we'll throw that back in there. Good. So now I got all the employees by their first name, last name, and their title. And again, no where clause, so it's just giving me all the records that exist within the table. So now let's look at using that where clause. Again, the where clause is just a way of adding in criteria to help refine our search to, only display a specific set of data that we're looking for. So I'm going to say where, and then I'll say title is equal to programmer. So now when I run this, Right. So this kind of goes back to the different data types that we assign to our fields, right? So because title is a data type of text, I'm going to need to enclose this in quotation marks. So now let's try this again. Good. So now it's going to return only the records where programmer is set in title. So, it's important to note, I mentioned briefly just a second ago that it's not case sensitive. And, this goes for your searches too, for your criteria. If I run this with the lowercase p, it'll still give me all the correct records. So that's pretty helpful. So that's the where title. That's not the where title. That's the where clause, where we're defining criteria, right? So if it's a text, we're going to need to enclose our text in quotation marks. If we're dealing with, say, numbers, then we kind of have, like our comparison operators, right? So if I add in, let's see, what was it? Was it zip code, employees, home zip? So if I add in the home zip field and I say where home zip is equal to 02210, I think that was one of the zip codes. Let's see. We'll run this and see. Run this. Nope. All right. Let's 02210. Let's try that. 02210. Okay, so the home zip was stored as a text field, not as a number field. So that won't work. If I throw quotes in it, then it'll work. All right, so that example is not going to work. But we do have salary in there. That should definitely be a number, right? So I'll say where salary is equal to, I think 5,000 is one. So around this, okay. So there it will return only the records where salary is equal to the value 5,000. So got 3 records there. So just getting that specific data that we requested. So again, with numbers, we're going to use our comparison operator. So I could say where salary is greater than 5,000, and then run that, and right, got my operators backwards. That's less than 5,000. The simple details. So yeah, there it is. It works successfully when you actually know what you're talking about. But there it returns all of the records where salary is less than 5,000. Switch it around, and now it should be greater than 5,000. Perfect. So there's a number field for the data type. Another one that we'll use kind of commonly, let's throw this field back in there, hire date, and it is going to be the date field. And so if you remember back to the reading, we're going to say, I'm going to keep that greater than, and we're going to say greater than 01/01/2020. So we're going to look for only the employees that were hired after January 1st, 2020. But when we're referencing a date like this in our SQL statements, we need to enclose the date with the hashtag # symbol. What was that crazy word that they use? Octothorpe symbol. I think they called it. Yeah. So, all right. So let's run this and take a look. Good. So it's going to return now all of the records where the hire date is greater than January 1st, anything after January 1st, 2020. So yeah, that's pretty fun. All right, so there are some basic where clause formats. Again, just setting the criteria for the data that it returns. And so again, you know, when we're running these queries, right, this, you know, this isn't like making a copy of any data or anything like this. This is, all this data is still stored within these tables over here. This is just kind of returning like a representation, like a, just like a logical view of the data that exists in these tables, right? It's not returning like a separate copy of it or anything like that. So, so yep, all that good stuff. There's an example. Yeah, select star. That's going to select every field within the table. Yep. Yeah, there's using text, good, even though it's a zip code. Not sure why they didn't just use number field, but whatever. All right, so let's talk about some compound conditions. And so all of these things, you know, we talked about in the last module, but we were using, you know, the QEE, the query by example, which is, you know, just basically the design view, the graphical user way of making these queries. But now we're just doing the same thing essentially, but just with SQL. So let's look at the and the or clause. All right, so I can keep this hire date in there. That's fine. I can just add into that. So I'm going to say and. So now I'm going to specify additional criteria, and I'll say title is equal to network specialist. I think that's what they have listed in there, right? So what this is going to do now is it's going to return all the records of any network specialist that was hired after 1/1/20, right? So when we use this and condition, both of these things need to be true in order for the record to be returned. So let's take a look. So there we only have two, network specialist and then the hire date of that after 20. So yeah, again, just a way of further refining your searches. So that's the and condition. Now let's look at the or condition. Actually, I'm going to leave this one just the way it is. I'm going to add in another one. So now I'll say or, and I'll keep title, but now I'll look for programmers. So I'll say programmer. So pay attention to the way that this works, right? So what I'm saying is hire date after January 1st and title equals network specialist or title equals programmer. So let's run this. So got my network specialist, programmers, but a lot of these programmers were hired before January 1st, 2020, right? And that's because that and condition was only tied to what was immediately after it. In this case, the network specialist. So you can do things like this, but if you want to kind of control the output, essentially, you can set precedence to which comparisons and which equations happen first. And this is true for, you know, essentially all of programming. And so the way that we can do that is we can throw some parentheses around here. So now I'm doing this or comparison first. I'm saying title is equal to network specialist or programmer, and all the anyone hired after January 1st. So this should show me now all of the network specialists and all of the programmers that were hired after January 1st. And so there we have it. 2 more. So programmers only hired after 2020. Same with the network specialist. So by adding in that parenthesis, we now applied that and condition to both of the title conditions that we set by using those parentheses. So those parentheses, super helpful for kind of giving precedence to what you want to happen first. Oops. All right, so one of the last kind of conditions that I want to talk about, or I guess conditions, is I'll get rid of this, and I'm gonna is the between condition. So I'm gonna keep hire date. I'm gonna say hire date between, and then I specify 2 different values. In this case, it's going to be a date. And so between those 2 values, you're going to use that condition and that we just looked at. And so I'll say, we'll just say to the end of the year. So we'll say 12/31/2020. So this should return any employee that was hired in the year 2020. So that looks like it worked pretty successfully, and we even have people that were hired on January 1st and December 31st, so that's interesting. So that's the between condition. You select a column, say between this value and this value, and then it will select everything between them inclusively, meaning that it will include the values that you specify. So that's pretty great. So actually, one last condition I'll show you guys. We'll throw title back up there, and this one's pretty simple. And we'll set this equal to programmer. And then this last condition is the not condition. So we're actually going to say where essentially title does not equal programmer, because we know that networkers are better, right? So, so the not condition is just going to exclude what you set it to, essentially. So we run this, and we get everything except programmers. So that's awesome. So, all right, good. So there's our 3 main clauses in an SQL statement. Select from where. Again, select is where you choose which columns you want to be displayed in your results. From is the table that you want to select the columns from. And then where is where you can specify any conditions or criteria to kind of filter the records that you want displayed. All right, so I hope that was beneficial, and we'll see you in the next one.